guys, welcome to a weekend-ish reading vlog. Currently, I am reading The Last Wish, the first book sort of series of short stories in the Witcher series, and I'm really liking it so far. It's very comparable to the show. If you like the show, it feels very similar. I will say, there's one story in particular so far that I feel like the show actually handled better, but it has the same, general feeling, and I'm enjoying it. So, this has been a nice sort of, cozy read. We got a big snowstorm this weekend, so currently there's a lot of snow outside, and this just feels like the right read for that. But I'm also reading We Hunt the Flame. This is gonna be a buddy read with Stephanie. I'm really looking forward to this one. It's inspired by ancient Arabia and follows two people who I think start off on opposite sides of a situation and fall in love, I think. It's also part one of a duology, and I've been following Hafsa Faisal for a really long time. She's also a graphic designer, which I am also a graphic designer, so that's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy her artwork, so this will be the first book that I pick up by her, and I'm really excited to dive in. So yeah, gonna do that. I have the slow cooker going for dinner. Let's jump right into reading. Enjoying the snow. Alright, so it is the next day. I'm actually currently folding laundry, so I'm taking a quick break to update you. I'm about 5 chapters into We Hunt the Flame. Gotten to know our characters a little bit more, getting the hang of the world a little bit better. There are 5 caliphates, which are basically states that all operate under the Sultan, and one of our main characters is the Sultan's son, the prince. He's also known as the Prince of Death. His name is Nasir, and he acts as an assassin for his father, but he hates it, and he's dead inside, and he's very much not okay. That was the main impression that I got reading his chapters so far, is he has to put on this front of being this vicious, ruthless, heartless dude, even though he doesn't want to be, but he's been this way for so long that whenever he carries out an assassination, he just doesn't feel anything anymore because he's dead inside, basically. And then our other character, Zafira, haven't gotten to know her too well quite yet. She's known sort of as the hunter, where she dresses up like a man and goes into the Ars, which is this cursed forest that no one else can go into without getting lost and dying or going crazy. I don't know why she's able to go into the Ars to hunt, but she's worried that if people find out she's a woman, they're gonna demonize her, and even though she just wants to help her community and feed her people, there's a lot of really sort of strict rules about women's roles in society. They're not allowed to run their own businesses or be independent. So she's really trying to keep it under wraps that she is the hunter, because if they find out, she's worried she won't be able to do this for her people anymore. I'm curious to see when their roads sort of cross. I'm also 20 pages from the end of The Last Wish, so I'm gonna finish that up tonight before I go back into We Hunt the Flame, just because, like, look, I'm so close to the ending. I was literally gonna finish it last night, but I was falling asleep. I'm on the last short story, which is the titular, like, The Last Wish, where Geralt meets Yennefer, and that whole thing. If you've seen the show, you know, or if you've read the books, you know. But I really enjoyed that short story collection, but I do have some sort of complicated thoughts. I do think the show has handled sort of emotional beats better, but I also like that the books, like, allow Geralt to be funny, because I think in the show and the games, which I haven't played but I have a general, like, impression of, Geralt is a very, like, serious, gruff dude, and, like, the only humor is really circumstantial, whereas in the book, like, he outright, like, makes jokes and it's really funny. So I don't know, I don't have a clear favorite yet between the books and the show. I'm sure if I read on, I'll have a little bit more clarity, but I'm enjoying it so far, and it was a really fun read, and the illustrated edition is beautiful. The illustrations within are just, they set the mood so well. I've said this in the past when reading Empire the Vampire, but I truly wish more fantasy stories especially came illustrated. It just adds so much, and I love it. So definitely recommend picking up the illustrated edition if you've been looking for an excuse to jump into the Witcher series. That's kind of what I was waiting for. I will probably pick up the paperbacks just because there's really not any alternative option available, at least in the US, other than ebooks, I guess. But I hate to be that picky about it, but I like the video game art, but I don't like it on my books, you know? But yeah, so gonna finish folding laundry and finish The Last Wish, and I'll update you again later. Did I sort of forget that I was vlogging? Let's not talk about it. I've read a little bit more of We Hunt the Flame. It's getting pretty good. Zafira and Nasir have finally met. They're in, like, a prison. It's not really a prison. It's an island that was used as a prison for, like, evil spirits. The salvation of their land is hidden away there, and Zafira and Nasir are, like, the only people that can find the Last Jawalrat, which is, like, a book that's gonna bring magic back to the land. So they're navigating that at the moment. They're coming across some supernatural baddies and fighting them and learning about each other on the way. There's also a fun sort of general character with Nasir named Altair, and his dynamic with Nasir is really fun because he just, like, teases the heck out of Nasir, and, like, Nasir kind of hates him, but they also work really well together. And even Zafira's like, I wonder if they know, like, how in sync they are, which has been funny. So I'm about halfway through right now, and Stephanie and I she's gotten a bit better about trying to keep on pace with me. She is a much faster reader than I am, so typically when we read a book together, she finishes it first, even if I get a head start. But she has been consciously sort of like, no, I'm gonna slow down for Lexi, which has been fun and nice of her to do. So we're around the same part. I'm hoping to have this wrapped up by Saturday or Sunday. We shall see, but yeah, liking it so far. So I had some errands to run today. It's Saturday, and I dropped some books off at my local bookstore for a buyback and got some stuff with the store credit I earned, so I figured I'd show you guys. I found the Book of the Month edition of The Love Hypothesis for 50 cents. It's not marked up at all. It's in great condition. This was such a score. I already own this in paperback, but I picked this up for Stephanie. I asked her if she was interested, and she said yes. So that was a great find. Probably the best find of the day for, like, you know, the price especially. And then I've never seen this in hardcover, so when I saw it, I snatched it up. It's a little beat up and it's got a sticker that I'm going to try to peel off, but it is a first edition hardcover of The Night Circus. Not a first printing, but still a pretty good find for $11. I have the hardcover of The Starless Sea, so I I prefer hardcovers, and I read The Night Circus a couple years ago and really enjoyed it, so figured I'd upgrade my copy to a hardcover and sell my paperback at some point. But really excited to find this. That was cool. And then because I'm enjoying We Hunt the Flame so much, I figured I'd go ahead and grab We Free the Stars, the sequel, for $14, which is full price for Bull Moose, but still a pretty good deal for a YA hardcover. So not mad about that at all. But yeah, that's what I got with my store credit. It was a nice little trip to Bull Moose. And I think that finishes up my errands. I'm gonna head home, grab some lunch because I'm hungry, and then try to finish up We Hunt the Flame because Stephanie finished it yesterday and she said she really loved it, so I gotta catch up so we can talk about it. But I am enjoying it quite a bit so far. The stakes are getting high. They're on, you know, a quest to find the lost Jawa Rot, so I'm curious to see how it all plays out. Again, Stephanie said it was really good, so I'm excited. And a car is pulling up next to me, so I'm gonna stop now. Bye! Hello. I forgot to mention, maybe, I don't remember, I listened to the audiobook for Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid yesterday while I was doing some chores around the house. It was a really short audiobook. It was like 9 hours and I had already started it, so I was about halfway through when I picked it up. So I only had about 4 hours left. So I got through it pretty quickly. Overall though, I liked it. It was okay. I give it 3 stars. It's not my favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid book. I feel like she's definitely grown a lot as an author since this book came out, which I think it came out in like 2015. And since then, you know, her big heavy hitters, Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones, Malibu Rising have come out. And I feel like I prefer her more historical writing. I don't know. The writing style in this one was just, it felt very stilted at first. It took a little bit for me to get used to sort of the character voice. And then because the plot of this book sort of deals with this woman and sort of the two diverging realities that occur, like, from this one night where she decides to either go home with her old high school boyfriend or not. You, like, every other chapter switched between, like, what would happen if she had done, you know, one thing or the other. And obviously, like, these paths diverge a little bit more and more, and, like, some things are revealed earlier on in one timeline versus the other, and so, like, some things were a little repetitive. And I think given the nature of the book, where there's essentially, like, 2 different ways this plot could have gone, you're sort of bound to like one storyline over the other. I don't like dislike the idea of like this story that it's exploring a couple different sort of realities, because I like the idea of, you know, how much does a single decision impact your life and exploring that, but I don't know if I loved the execution. It was fine. I didn't dislike it. Again, it just, where she's such a strong author kind of across the board, this felt weaker in comparison to her other books, which have all been like 4.5 5-star reads for me. But yeah, it was a nice like short audiobook to listen to. I don't listen to my audiobooks on like 2.5 times speed like a lot of people seem to. I just like cannot absorb the words if they're moving that fast. But it is a pretty short audiobook if you're looking to get into one like that. Again, you could do it in an afternoon if you listen to it fast. I do wish they had We Hunt the Flame. My library had like a 2-week wait on it. Since I'm in the middle of that one, I would have liked to be able to kind of get through that one a little bit more, but alas, it was not meant to be. I am over halfway through now. Let me see if I can find where I am. I've been reading the ebook because I do have that. Alright, so I'm on page 311. So about 2/3 of the way through. And the pace is very fast. I feel like not a whole lot has happened yet, where it's like a quest book. We're still in like the journey part as these characters are sort of interacting and trying to trust one another or not. So it's a lot of like character and relationship developments, not so much plot at the moment. It's a lot of, and we're walking through a desert. Oh, and there's a monster, gotta fight that. Nasir and Zafira are starting to feel the tinglings of their attraction to one another. So I'm curious to see how that develops. You have this sort of added weight to like Zafira is aware that Nasir is an assassin and a dangerous man and a murderer, and she's got conflicted feelings about that. She has to like keep reminding himself like he's a murderer, but she's attracted to him despite this. So that's been fun. We love tension. So I'm gonna keep reading. Got some plans to go out later. So hopefully I can get a good chunk of this done today, because Steph and I need to record our conversation soon. So yeah, I'll check in later. All right, We Hunt the Flame. Thoughts, opinions, feelings?
I'm still like pondering this book and how I feel about it, because overall I do really like this book.
I've already rated it myself, but it took me a while to kind of like land on that number, I think, because like you, I liked it, but I think there are considerable flaws with it as well.
I think this one's going to be a harder one for me to rate, because a lot, like everybody does their ratings differently and whatnot. Because ratings arbitrarily impact authors too. I feel like I always tend to think about that when I'm rating. I'm conflicted, but I do rather enjoy the book, and I find the world building to be really nice. And I think that's maybe because I already kind of have a familiarity with some of the topic or some of the culture, that it's easier for me to kind of do that. What are you struggling on?
The writing, I think. I liked the adventure. I liked the characters. We do sort of have this like MacGuffin thing. Gotta go find the book that's gonna save the world. I'm thinking back to certain events that happened, and I'm like, if you took that out, it'd be the same story. Or like, there's also moments that I felt like were supposed to be pretty big reveals that I was like, yeah. And like, I don't want to venture too far to like spoil your territory here, but like, especially like there's like 3 sort of at the end that I was like, yep. And that doesn't make them bad, but like, I feel like they didn't have that impact on me that like I want a book with like twists and stuff to have. So yeah, I don't know. And again, I liked the story. It was fun, and I liked the characters and their relationships. Altair was a favorite of mine. There was one thing I really struggled with personally, and not struggled with, I don't know. Obviously this is sort of like set up as an enemies to lovers story. I think authors sometimes have a hard time making like the enemies situation something that can still be redeemable. I think in this one I felt that sort of struggle a little bit harder than in some other stories that have an enemies to lovers storyline. There is an event that takes place, I think, within the first 25-30% of the book that until the end, Zafira doesn't know if Nasir is at fault for. And I think given the fact that she doesn't, and like, she knows it's either him or Altair that did this thing. I don't know how she can form the relationship with these two that she does, knowing that one of them is responsible for a horrible thing. Something that impacts her very, very deeply. So it was one of those things I was like, I don't know if like in real life you could fall in love or like even be attracted to someone that like may have done that, and I don't know. But there were certain elements like that I just felt like it was a little clunky in the writing in particular. And there were also moments in like the action where I had no idea what was happening. I don't mind purple prose, or like, I don't typically complain that books are overwritten, but I think in certain instances, there were moments that like I had to go back and read a passage like 2 or 3 times to get a sense of like the distance that was covered, or like what exactly is happening, and it was frustrating for me because I don't usually struggle with that. But I don't know, there's like a couple instances, especially again, distance was the thing that I was like, what?
2 points that I want to respond to with this. One, we just had a discussion the other day how I really love morally gray characters. I think where maybe I don't know what it says about me, but maybe where some characters, if you're trying to set up an enemies to lovers, it's like, how do you do it? I just feel like no thoughts for me. I was like, I'm already sold on this person. But especially with distance was something I was thinking about, especially once we were on Shad, where there were points where I was like, we really don't know how much we've gone. And I think in other instances, I would have been more bothered by that. But because, especially on the island, it's supposed to be such a mysterious place that is just going to mess with your mind the whole time, that it worked well in that instance. I can see the bits in the first like 2/3, especially even the first third, where certain things were a little bit hard to be just like, a lot of it, the descriptions were lacking in a way. But I feel like in that last bit was where, for me, it was a little bit harder to understand, like, okay, everything is going on all at once.
Well, and certain events felt abstract, so it was difficult to kind of discern what reality was. I say these things, but like I enjoyed the story still. Like I don't know, it's like I enjoyed it despite I think its failings. It made it hard for me to kind of settle because at first I was like, well, I liked it more than Jade Fire Gold, so I was leaning towards like a 4. But also in retrospect, I think I should have given Jade Fire Gold a 2-star rather than a 3-star. So I'm like, I wasn't really quite sure where this one landed for me personally. Where normally I feel like I can rate a book pretty much right away, I did need a little bit of time to digest this one and kind of figure out my feelings. And again, overall, I still did really enjoy it, so I don't think it's a perfect book, and I'm hoping that the sequel sort of improves on what we've been given so far. But I had a good time.
I really enjoyed it. I think when I first read it, my mind was just like, I think I was really content with it, even like where it left off, how it was going to, what I just, I saw this comment when I was thinking about how I was feeling about this book, where somebody commented just generally, where it was like, what is it with all these fantasy YA books having like titles that relate around like fire? I'm so tired of it. And I was like, did you read the quote that the title comes from? Because that was beautiful.
It was. I know. I was reading on the couch and Zach was next to me and I was like, they said the thing! And he's like, they hunt the flame? And I was like, they hunt the flame!
It was so good. And like there were a lot, I didn't get to copy down as many quotes that I really liked, but there were definitely some that like had me like close the book for a moment and just like really sit in and think about the language that she chose for it. To the book that struggled a little bit more with language than others, but there were definitely
I think it's a hard balance to strike to have like very flowery prose and also have a very like action oriented story. They're are generally kind of mutually exclusive. It was interesting to see Hafsa Faisal try to like strike this balance between the two. It's like, yeah, an action story can be beautifully written, and in a lot of terms I agree. There were quite a few times where I was like, that was beautiful. Like, I think there was, like, at one point when Zafira is, like, falling asleep, it's like, it's not that she fell asleep, it's that, like, sleep stole her soul. And I was like, what a beautiful way to word that. But yeah, there were several moments that I thought, like, wow, that was beautiful writing.
What did you think? And I think this is something that people either really liked about it or didn't like about it at all. What did you think about the language use in the book and how there were a lot of explicit uses of Arabic throughout the book?
I was fine with that. I mean, I've read several books that do that, not necessarily with Arabic, but like I was reading a romance book, You Had Me at Hola, and like there's a lot of Spanish in that book, but I think in that case and in this case the authors do a good job of like contextualizing the language, so even if you aren't familiar with Arabic or Spanish or whatever, it makes sense. Like she gives a description of what that person is saying, just not necessarily within the dialogue. I did see one review where a native Arabic speaker was complaining about it because it made him kind of pull back and think like, it makes me like frame why like they're saying the Arabic stuff all of a sudden when like presumably this is all translated from Arabic and that's what they would be speaking, but for the sake of the story and my comprehension of it, it is in English. Which I thought was an interesting point, but I have seen it done a lot, so it didn't particularly bother me or anything. I do wish that the glossary that is online was included in the book. I don't know why it's not. It was weird to have to like go to the internet for some things.
It was like one of those things that like, as I was thinking about how I would rate this book, which I still have not done, and I'm thinking about it a lot, that's like automatically something that brings it down for me a little bit, because it's like I just wish that this was already in the book, especially going to the internet to look for things, especially a duology that is already done, is
It's
the risk of
dangerous.
spoiler is so high. But I really liked it, and I think I saw that review you're talking about, and there was a moment where it was like, this might be weird, or if you're a native speaker where it like doesn't make sense, but then at least like I can't speak to Arabic, but speaking in regards to Spanish, it's like there's so many instances depending on how you've grown up that Spanglish is very common. Yeah, this might not make sense if you were speaking proper language, but like I think it still flies.
I think injecting sort of that language does a really good job of adding sort of a flair of culture to the story, where this is obviously inspired by ancient Arabia, and you know, you have these sort of monstrous creatures taken from their mythology. It's just sort of another layer that kind of adds to the feeling that I'm assuming that Hafsa Faisal was drawing upon as she wrote it. So Especially where I haven't really read a lot of fantasy inspired by like the Middle East. I liked it. I thought it was nice.
The only thing I didn't like, and it's one of those things, like, not that I didn't like it, but when I was trying to think about when I was like putting it on my Goodreads of like, oh, I've completed this and whatnot, and I was like, oh, this is YA. Like, I kind of, some of the tones in this book were a lot heavier than I was expecting or that I would usually expect for YA.
Yeah, Zafira didn't really feel 17. I wish she had been aged up a little bit. I know it's still like YA, and there's more things that define a YA book than just the protagonist's age, but like, I wish she had been 18 or 19 just because of the role she sort of took on. I know that like a thing with both her and Nasir is that they were forced to grow up too fast and like they're really just kids, but I think you can still get that sort of sentiment with like a 19-year-old and like have it feels a little bit more like realistic to her personality and like her worldview. But that's just me personally. There's a lot of times where I'm like, she's 17 for what? Like in a lot of YA books. So
I think it's probably chapter 52 when she's talking with Kifa, where there's just like a very, very casual mention of child sex abuse. And it's like, that's a lot. I read that sentence and I had to go back to be like, did I just read what I think I read? So
yep.
I think some of the way that it was like actually like formally categorized, I have questions.
I struggle as an adult sometimes reading YA where there's a lot of times where I'm like, I wish this had been just like an adult novel, because I think like these themes could have been explored better in a more sort of mature, or like for a more mature audience. But it's also important, I think, for a book, especially inspired, like a fantasy book inspired by a culture we don't really see a lot in media, to be accessible for younger like people. And so it's a little selfish, I know, when I say like I wish this book had been an adult, because there are certain aspects that I think could have been addressed a little bit more directly. But I think there are plenty of books out there for adults that explore those similar themes. So I don't want to take away one from the kids, but again, overall, I gave it a 3.5. Not a bad score by any means. I did have a really fun time reading this with you, and I'm excited to read the second one. But we should probably wrap this up here because my memory card is running out of space. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know down in the comments if you've read We Hunt the Flame. If you finished the duology, what did you think? No spoilers, please, but I would love to hear your impressions and your thoughts. Also, feel free to follow my socials down in the description box below. Like this video and subscribe to this channel, you know, the deal. And as always, have a lovely day. Bye.